Hello and welcome to Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech and our friends at Elevate IP. I'm Alex Kinsella.
And I'm Matthew Clausen.
So today on the podcast, we're going to ask you a question. What do plush toys and tech startups have in common? The answer is everything. Landon is the CEO of Makeship, one of Canada's fastest growing creator economy companies. Makeship launched in 2018 with just $8,000 and a bold idea: help online creators bring their characters to life through limited edition plush toys. Today, Makeship has grown to a global business with over 65 employees and more than $20 million paid out to creators without taking on a dime of outside funding. On this episode, Landon joins us to talk about Makeship's journey from its Kitchener roots to the global stage, the power of fan communities, and how his team is building trust at scale with creators big and small. Plus, he shares why being scrappy still matters and how Makeship plans to hit $100 million in annual revenue, USD, in the next 3 years. Let's get into it. Welcome, Landon, to the studio. A plushie here, which we'll put a photo of on the episode description. This is really cool. This is actually my 16-year-old's now, and I forget when she wanted it, but it was a couple years ago, Christmas time, and she sends me a link. She's like, hey, can you add this to my Christmas list? I would really like this. And my first reaction was like, what is this? I don't know this character. Which is something you'll find out with kids because they'll start liking things and you don't know what they are. But then I saw the website and it was Makeship. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know them. They're here. This is really exciting. So can you tell us a little bit about Makeship, the kind of the mission and who you are in your role?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Well, Makeship was incorporated back in 2018 by our two co-founders. One was in engineering in Queens. The other is based out of Shenzhen in China. Our one co-founder went to take a year off, went to China. They met 2 weeks later. They started a company out of trust, and then Makeship actually spun out of their other company that they built. So they didn't have a lot of money, obviously. One was a university student. The other was in his young 20s, and they had $8,000. They put it together. They started a business. They wanted to be as risk adverse as they could. So they developed a crowdfunded model whereby customers purchase up to a certain order quantity. If it hits that quantity after our campaign, what we call it, campaign ends, then we will go ahead and produce the product and fulfill it to customers. If it doesn't reach the minimum order quantity or MOQ, we'll end up refunding all customers. So it was a way to de-risk the business model itself, but it was also a way to work with emerging creators that we had belief in. We thought they had selling potential. Some of them didn't necessarily believe they had that potential themselves. And what we often found is that they had a highly engaged, highly loyal following. And some of those creators would end up selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of merch for a single SKU. And many of them actually ended up stopping their full-time roles and did content creation full-time, move from there. So it was really empowering to see some of the success stories of those emerging creators and seeing some of them put down payments on their first house or buying their first car because of what we were able to do with them and partner with them. So that's a bit about the business model. Yeah, we started back in 2018 and now in our 8th year, it all feels like a blur at this point. But
well, and to make it 7 years is kind of crazy for a startup, right? Because that kind of cliff is so steep for so many.
Definitely. And I think for myself, my background's in public accounting, and I had seen a variety of clients. I'd never seen one that didn't have any funding, didn't have any debt. It was an interesting business model when I was talking to our founder, and I believed in what they were trying to build and made the jump. But it's a unique business model. It's unique in the fact that we're completely bootstrapped. We have the autonomy to make our own decisions. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Does that change your relationship with the customer? Like in terms of how you're doing this crowdfunded model, and you obviously have, real ambitious and impressive goals for growth. But does that change kind of I think some of the most important conversations so many of our companies have are with their customer, and the way that journey fuels their growth. And so just from a crowdfunded model, like it's a radically different dynamic that you have from many companies that are out there.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. We are able to have this very authentic relationship. We're not constricted by any red tape or objectives that other people have for us. We're able to truly understand our creators and brands, understand our customers, understand what they are wanting to do. We pride ourselves on being a very innovative and flexible partner and not having any debt covenants or investors where they're trying to tell us what to do. We're essentially trying to figure it out on our own and really be on the ground floor with creators and have what we call roundtables with our creators, understanding where do they see content monetization as a whole moving in the next 5 years? Where do we see their content moving? And we're able to adjust our strategy with our top creators by learning what they want in a product, what they want in an overall offering. And it just frees up our capabilities and our innovative capabilities that we have.
One of the things I notice about the plushies, the quality. And that's kind of a mixed bag, though, when you think about creator merch. Like my kids are 11, 13, and 16. All the time they're saying, hey, can I get this hoodie from this guy? Can I get this from this other creator? I've ordered some stuff and I'm always kind of like the sizing is off, the quality's not there. This is really well done. How much does that play into the trust you build with creators? And then, like you've talked before too, about you're expanding beyond just plushies into that other sector of merch.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And we take a bit of a different approach than even some of our direct competitors in the sense that we pride ourselves not only on the quality of the products, but also on the customizability. And we launch, on average, last year, we launched over 1,200 unique plush SKUs. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. We've developed a very robust, efficient pipeline, but a lot of our employees themselves are super fans of the creators and brands that we work with. So for them, it is very important to have a one-to-one replica of the product itself. And some of those intrinsic qualities that might not be seen in like mass retail, we're able to really hone in and understand what do the core fans really want to see. They want to see a reflection of their favorite character in a game or their favorite character from a content creator in that product itself. So it is something that is first and foremost to who we are. And that's obviously then developed extremely strong partnerships with our creators and brands. If their fans are extremely happy with the product, they're happy, they'll continue to want to establish and foster that relationship. So it is very important to us. And we took a bit of a different approach in the sense that we, in our early phase of Makeship, even before I joined back in 2018 to 2020, we did have a wide range of products. Then we decided to constrict ourselves to plush and plush derivatives. And that was a conscious choice in the sense we wanted to be the best that we could possibly be in a single product category, develop that robust pipeline. And then once we had, which now we've launched over 4,000 unique plush SKUs since our inception, we are now able to expand to different product categories like apparel and provide that exact same experience. Now we've developed that trust and that relationship with our content creators and our brands. They understand the quality that they're going to expect. And now we have the efficient process in place to translate what we've done for plush into apparel. And so far, what we've seen is none of our apparel campaigns have failed so far. They've all been successful, which is extremely strong in terms of our business model. And then what we've actually seen as well is that approximately 70% of the customers that purchase apparel from us didn't purchase the plush toy from the previous creators campaign or brands campaign, which is telling us that not only are we able to provide a new product for the creators and brands, we're also expanding the potential for merchandise. Some fans aren't necessarily going to want to purchase a plush toy, but they may be interested in a hoodie or a t-shirt that reflects the brand. So now we're framing it as an overall service offering where we're maximizing the value, the complete value for a creator and their fans, which is really interesting.
Wow. So that offering is obviously key to Makeship hitting its 100 million lifetime gross sales. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
What does it take to go from that milestone to a goal of 100 million annually by 2027?
Yeah, it's definitely ambitious. Our functional currency is in USD, so that $100 million goal is USD, and what we were able to achieve was USD. Last year, we did 40 million USD, 55 million CAD in revenue. We're on pace for 55 million USD, 75 million CAD this year. So we're on track, we're on pace, but each year it gets harder and harder to grow at that same percentage. And it will take a lot of effort, a lot of innovation. And I think we understand that. And that's why we have diversified now our product catalog, expanded our product catalog. We are continuing to move upstream with the creators and brands that we work with. the emerging segment will still be a core segment for our business and a primary revenue stream. But we also understand the fact that now we have developed a presence in the market. We can translate those unique aspects of what we do with our business model to larger brands, global licensors that we're talking with recently, and providing that same aspect, that customizability, noticing that. And even for these large licensing deals, we're not going after necessarily the primary character that everyone would know about. We're going after tertiary, secondary characters that we know are underserved. They're not heavily diluted in the market. We can take a unique spin and show these licensors that you do have thousands of fans that are hungry for this piece of merch. And we have the capabilities and we have world-class designers to be able to produce this very, very custom product that those fans will love and essentially serve the underserved in a sense. So that's the spin that we're taking with some of the licensors that we're talking with, and even some of the primary characters that we're in negotiations with. We're doing a very unique spin that wouldn't necessarily be available in retail. Like I said, it's going to be exclusive merchandise that's only available on Makeship, and something that you only have a limited amount of time to buy and it's gone forever. And we want to keep that exclusive feel with our business model, regardless if we're working with a small emerging creator or $1 billion licensor or brand.
Yeah, so these aren't like the kind of the character, it's like a Funko Pop that you'd get. It's kind of like a kind of same thing. These are a unique take on a primary or a secondary character.
Exactly.
Something. It kind of reminds me of like a little bit of Shopify, right? Because Shopify was small, like a lot of small businesses. They did the Shopify Plus experiment for big brands, and that's kind of the same thing you're doing here with licensing in a way, right? Kind of that same.
Yeah, actually very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar in its own unique way from like a merchandising standpoint. Yeah, definitely. And I think Funko is a great example. They have that standardization, and I think it worked well for them. But I think what we're seeing now in terms of the demographic of customers that are primarily purchasing from Makeship is that, yeah, there is a little bit of a shift. They are super fans. They're spending time. They're spending money to play different games or watch content. And they do want a one-to-one reflection of that character, or content creator. Sometimes we'll do plush of content creators. I think the one that you have there is the Mandela catalog, which is one.
Yes.
I'll notice
I mean, with 4,000 SKUs, that's really impressive to know what that one is.
It is super cool. And I think that the way that we're approaching not only the creators that we're working with, but making sure that their fans are going to be extremely happy. There is that yin and yang relationship with creators and their fans. And that's why our mission is connecting communities by providing exclusive merchandise that fuels fandoms. And it's something that is extremely important to us. And we care deeply about all of the clients that we work with. We work with thousands or upwards of 1,000 last year. And we provide that same dedicated relationship for each and every product that we make.
Yeah. The one thing I was wondering is around creator economy. A lot of that is based on the platform, right? So YouTube, TikTok, X, Instagram. Do you find, like, over the course of the last 7 years, how has your relationship with creators changed or been impacted as platform rules change? As you know, X, I think, is a good example. I don't know how many creators you would have had on X that kind of dropped off and went to other ones, or potential TikTok bans in certain countries. Like, does that ever kind of come up in your conversations?
Yeah, it definitely does when we do talk to creators. And I think that is why it's so important to have your ears close to the ground, understanding what are their motivations from a content monetization standpoint. Are they continuing to stay on X, or are they moving to new platforms like Blue Sky, or are they leveraging YouTube more, or do they see YouTube continuing to be a primary platform for their monetization? And understanding their needs, not only in the present, but in the future, it helps us plan and build towards our strategic objectives, and understanding how to potentially adjust our prospecting methodology to focus on creators that are now on Blue Sky and trying to tap into that segment. So yeah, it definitely makes an impact. And that is why it's so important for us to continuing to have those relationships, that communication, not just trying to talk to creators about what their next plush toy or hoodie is going to be with Makeship, but also understanding what's going on in their lives, what's going on in terms of their content monetization and what they're building towards as well.
One of the things that really comes across as you kind of describe the Makeship story as a real focus on, I think, kind of quality and maybe even like strategic trade-offs in terms of where you, or discipline is another way you could say it, in terms of where you kind of allocate your resources, think about relationships. I guess I'm wondering, how much is that a reflection of, kind of your vision, the start that the company had, your internal culture, even like how does that affect kind of who you hire and just how you, think about those decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our culture is essentially a reflection of our brand. We're extremely youthful. We're extremely energetic. We're authentic, even in the conversations, regardless whether it's an emerging creator or brand, or, like I said, $1 billion brand that we're talking to. The approach is very similar. It's very authentic, very genuine. Like I said, a lot of our employees are super fans of the creators and the brands that we're working with. So for them, they care about everything that we're doing, from the first touch point, from sales outreach to the design of the product to customers getting their product and customer service and the quality and the customizability. They care so deeply because they understand what it's like to be a super fan. So yeah, that energetic youthfulness is definitely something that reflects in our brand and in the relationships that we have with creators, but also maintaining a reliable tone, a professional tone. It is a very interesting balance, and it's something that I feel we do extremely well.
That's awesome. So the super fans are the ones who are kind of managing the customer relationship and working with. That's cool.
Some of our designers will fight over if we're working with a content creator that multiple of them know, or a brand that multiple of them know. They're like, I want to do this. Like, please let me do this. I know exactly what characters to pitch to them. It's really fun.
Do people trade off?
I don't know. Maybe there's some behind the scenes trade-offs that are happening, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's the way it works here with podcasting. People say Alex is hosting a podcast, and then we kind of arm wrestle over who gets to sit in the room with Alex. So.
Amazing.
I would like to believe that. I would really like to believe that. Hey, I want to go back to one thing earlier, and then we've got some other stuff. But what is a plush derivative? It sounds like a great name. I always hear phrases and I'm like, this would be a great name for a band. And plush derivative, I might go learn how to play an instrument right now just for that name.
When I say plush derivative, I more so mean we offer our like original plush toys, which last year represented about 80% of the plush products that we offered, 85%. But then we also offer plush keychains. We offered jumbo plush. We offer plush long boys. So, they're all plush to a degree, but they're very different in terms of the way that they look.
What's a plush long boy?
A long boy, it's essentially a very, very long plush. So we've done dinosaurs. It's probably 2 to 3 feet long. We've done a dinosaur before, a cat, an extended cat. Depends on the character, obviously, whether or not it's a good fit. But yeah, we've sold a few long boys.
I'm just getting some holiday gift ideas for my kids as we're doing this.
I love it.
I don't want to kill the vibe. Tariffs are a thing right now, if you read the news, and it's causing a lot of confusion across the board. With a physical product, how does that impact your business?
Yeah, it definitely impacts us in a variety of ways. The nice piece is that we're closely connected to our distributor, which is the previous business that our founders actually incorporated. It is in China, so they're integrated into our comm systems, into Slack. So we're able to communicate with them quite closely, which has been extremely helpful as part of our tariff response, which was evaluating what's the impact going to be. There was a lot of uncertainty, I think, as most people would expect, with what the administration did and the elevation of the situation and then rescinding of certain tariff rates. But we were able to work extremely closely on the ground floor with the team in China. We were able to evaluate different distribution options at our disposal. And then we ultimately came to the decision of needing to respond in a way that, unfortunately, we needed to implement a surcharge on our customers. We debated heavily whether or not to implement it to the global customer base, but since the tariffs were only impacting U.S. customers, we decided to implement a surcharge to U.S. customers only. And so far, we've seen no dip in conversion rates, no dip in traffic, which has been great to see. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that we took a very transparent philosophy in execution of the tariff rollout. We informed our creators via email before we were implementing the surcharge. We informed our customers before we implemented the surcharge and let them know that ultimately we're going to take on the majority of the burden that we can. And when we feel like it's at a point where we do need to have some of that surcharge implementing to the customer, then we will do so. So we were very transparent that it's a last resort for us. We're not going to do it for the sake of maintaining existing profitability levels. We'll only do it as a matter of long-term sustainability and survival in a sense. So it's definitely impacted us. We'll see how the situation evolves. I know that a lot of the big conglomerates are now, Walmart's, I think, mentioned that they are increasing prices. Mattel, Temu, Shein. So a lot of companies are now increasing prices or have already, and we'll see how that affects discretionary spending from consumers over the next few months. But we have geotagging on to see what our conversion rates are like for US customers versus the global market. We'll continue to evaluate to see if we need to respond. But like all tough situations, I think there's different ways to deal with it. For us, we took a very logical, methodical approach. We didn't react hastily once tariffs were announced. The next day, we didn't implement a surcharge. We waited about a month and a half before we actually took action, and we'll continue to do that as the situation evolves. But
yeah, it's impressive because it's such a data informed approach. And I know we've talked to so many local companies who have, I think while the rest of us were maybe watching kind of 24/7 cable news, they've been using kind of their data and their relationship with their customers to not just kind of sit in that uncertainty, but actually think about how do you continue to move your business forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Super impressive. And I'm sure, especially with your financial background, I'm sure it's extra challenging.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've seen, I think startups sometimes have a tendency or perception that you're very erratic and it's chaotic. And yes, it's definitely chaotic at times, especially as we continue to grow. There is a level of chaos that you need to control. But there's different approaches. I think even with SVB and the collapse of Silicon Valley a couple of years ago, we used Silicon Valley as our primary bank account at the time. Luckily, we had withdrawn the majority of funds, but the Federal Reserve ended up stepping in, and you saw different stories. You saw different startups the day that it was announced that they collapsed, of closing shop and a fire sale for all their products. And that's definitely not something that we would ever do. Luckily, now we're in an extremely healthy position, extremely profitable. But that approach and that DNA of being methodical, being logical, and not being too erratic in nature and rash in our decisions has definitely helped in terms of our growth rate thus far.
You often hear about someone describe themselves like a wartime leader, like a wartime president or whatever. And we're in a financial kind of battle right now. You seem like, with your financial background, you're like a wartime CEO in a way, right?
In a sense, yeah.
You have the knowledge to kind of navigate this. How do you kind of see that translate over time? In most startups, the CEO is the original founder or someone brought in. You joined in 2021. 2021.
Yeah.
You're the CEO since May.
Yeah.
Which is, congratulations, by the way. I guess we
Thank
should
you.
say congratulations on that. Should have opened with congratulations on becoming CEO. How do you kind of tackle that? Because you bring in obviously the finance knowledge and the financial understanding, but you're also leading people, you're leading all the things. How do you kind of balance that? You've got to keep the books, but you've also got to keep the team moving and the culture growing.
Yeah, I would say I've definitely evolved myself, and I think the company's evolved as well. I am appreciative of the time I had in public accounting because it taught me to, and I think there's a couple of different ways that you can approach public accounting. Some people like to be on recurring files year over year. I took a little bit of a different approach where I knew I didn't want to be there forever. So I was on unique files, unique engagements, special engagements. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of exposure around different clients, different industries, and understanding how they operate. And I tried to absorb everything that I possibly could. And in public accounting, you're working so many hours, you're half the time you don't necessarily know what you're doing. So you need to learn on the fly. And I think that mentality worked well when I joined Makeship. Is I'm not necessarily going to know the answer to every single thing every day, but I know how to deal with things that I don't know. And I know that I will learn it and I will grow as a person. I think a lot of people at our company have that same mindset, that while we have a vision for our future and a direction of where we want to go, and that obviously has difficulties in itself of making sure that communication is clear and transparent and resonates with our employees and drives them and motivates them like it does for everyone in the company. But it is something that we all foster, is the sense that whenever we get into difficult times, and luckily we've been growing at an extremely fast pace, but even in those growth periods, there's been times of uncertainty of competitors and what they're doing and needing to react, or unforeseen external circumstances like tariffs. And I think every time that we face a problem like that, it's so amazing to see the entire company come together. We are all dedicated. We are in the trenches together, and I'll be in the trenches with them, and we will work as hard as we possibly can to come out of that situation, not only surviving the problem that we're facing, but come out even stronger. And it's definitely a reflection of our DNA. It's kind of the business model of being crowdfunded, being scrappy, not having external funding. It's whenever we're faced with a problem, we're able to come together and execute together, which is really cool.
How do you look for that in new talent? Like, so and especially with the talent landscape really changing, obviously a lot of small early startups are scrappy just by their very nature. And so how do you actually kind of keep that same dynamic as you grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've grown quite a bit in terms of our headcount this year, even already increased our headcount from 17 people from the start of the year. And it does become a very important, I think before I joined in my heavy finance background, I think I underestimated the importance of talent acquisition and how important that is to find the right people. And it is extremely important in our philosophy at Makeship. We go through, some people say it's a bit of a rigorous recruiting process, but it is intentional. We want to make sure that the people that we are hiring are like-minded, like the people that we currently have at Makeship, that they are very scrappy, that they can wear many hats, that they are open to change, that they understand that by starting or by joining a startup, you are going to have a certain level of chaos, but the belief and the knowledge that there is going to be a lot of growth opportunities and learning. So over time, it's become easier and easier to determine and through the recruiting process, identify those people. But it definitely was something that in its early infancy of me joining Makeship was something that I think I was a little bit naive about it should take a couple weeks to hire someone and we'll call it a day. But it definitely does take a lot of time, a lot of effort. Our people team does an amazing job at trying to ensure that our onboarding process and our recruiting process is top notch. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Listen, we've unfortunately run out of time on this, which I hate.
Okay.
I want to talk more. Can we have you back in a little bit to talk some more?
For sure. When we hit 100 million, for sure.
We'll have the 100 million episode. We'll actually decorate the studio. We'll do some painting in here. Thank you so much for joining us. Like this was a really awesome conversation. I'm glad I actually get to put an interview to a plushie for a change.
Kind of embarrassed I didn't bring one, right?
Well, now you've got.
I'm going to go
next
and
time,
get
next time I'll bring
one
a
of the big
basket.
ones.
You got your holiday list going now, right? So, but thank you again. If you are interested in learning more about career opportunities at Makeship or what plushies and creators they're working with, you can visit makeshop.com. That's right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Makeship.com.
Just
Yeah.
making sure. Make sure I get it. Sometimes it's like .io or something, right? And I just forget. You can visit makeship.com. If you have questions about how Communitech can help your startup start, grow, and succeed, you can visit communitech.ca or follow along on the entrepreneurial journey on all the major social media platforms at Communitech. I'm Alex.
I'm Matthew.
And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So that was one of the best interviews I think we've done. You were nervous, but you shouldn't have been.
I think I stopped breathing at one point. Yeah.
I was more concerned about the it's Iced Coffee Wednesday here at Communitech, which I screamed when I walked up to the second floor and I saw it and I was so excited because
the little things.
I do appreciate a nice coffee and I haven't had one since probably last summer because it hasn't been warm enough, and also I haven't been here on a Wednesday, I guess, yet this year. I think I have. Anyways, this is your first time on the podcast.
Hopefully they're not the last.
Not the last.
We'll see.
Definitely not the last. I think you did a very good job. What kind of jumped out at you with this interview?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest one was just the kind of culture and the connection maybe between culture and brand, and the fact that Makeship thinks really critically, and maybe even, I'm not sure if it's fair to say this, but is making choices that aren't necessarily obvious in terms of, the way their companies emerged, the way they, the relationship they have with a customer or their talent, I'm always impressed when you meet these kind of globally distributed companies that still have a very, very intimate relationship across the company, like within the team, but also with their customer. Because I think that I've worked in different hybrid teams, virtual teams, been on different kind of virtual committees and boards, and it's that the culture piece is always the hardest piece, I think.
I agree. I mean, culture between a brand and its customers, and then within the brand, within the company itself, is so difficult to scale and so difficult to keep going sometimes as a company grows. And I think with Makeship, it seems it's one, again, a lot of people don't know it's here.
Right.
Like in Waterloo region, which I always like. I like being able to go, hey, did you know, if I see a Makeship plushie somewhere, I'm like, hey, do you know that they're here, they're in town, and people get excited about that.
That's been, I think, my favorite thing about kind of crossing over into tech and joining Communitech is just seeing the number of companies where I'm kind of interacting with their software, or I see their product out and about and I get to say, ooh, that's Canadian, that's from Waterloo. It's just that sense of pride, particularly in this current moment.
Yeah.
Is so
well,
important.
They have the little made with and the heart emoji
right.
in Waterloo region, or in Kitchener, Waterloo, whatever it happens to be. Whatever we're talking about in terms of however we're describing the region today. I'm not going to get us in trouble for that.